welcome back to B.HookedCrochet.com. I'm your host Brittany, and in this tutorial I'm going to demonstrate how to crochet your Inspirations free pattern, the Big Tartan Crochet Scarf. Now, as I mentioned, it's a free pattern you can get at yourinspirations.com, and I'll leave the link to that pattern in the description below. To complete your Big Tartan Scarf, you're going to need several skeins of yarn. You're going to need 5 balls of a contrasting color A, which is gold here in this pattern, 5 balls of contrasting color B, or a ran in the pattern, 3 balls of contrasting color C, charcoal tweed, and 2 balls of contrast D, or the pewter tweed. Now those are the colors I'm going to be demonstrating with this tutorial, so you can use these colors or you can choose your own at yourinspirations.com. So normally I like to jump right in and start working on the project so we can really get our hands in there and feel like we're accomplishing something. However, this pattern utilizes a technique called Tartan Crochet, and it does require some preparation before we can even begin. Now what you see here on the back side of the screen are what we would refer to as bobbins in Tartan Crochet. However, they're really just balls of yarn that I have wound ahead of time in preparation for this design. What you need to do before we start, there's a couple of things. We need to have a printout or a saved copy of the pattern. You can get that at yourinspirations.com. Just search for the pattern called Big Tartan Crochet Scarf, or I'll have the link in the description below so you can just click on that. You're also going to need to wind up several of these bobbins, or just little balls of yarn. Now to begin the initial foundation chain, this is going to be the most tricky part of the entire pattern. But what we want to do is we need to have a bobbin for each one of the color transitions in this first part of the pattern. So you're going to need to wind 4 bobbins of the gold colorway, in my case, if you're following the pattern, or that's going to be contrast color A. You're also going to need to wind 2 balls of contrasting color B, which is a ran in this case. And we're also going to be using the charcoal tweed or contrasting color C. You'll just need 1 of those. So go ahead and wind your bobbins, 4 for color A, 2 for color B, and 1 for color C. Once you've done that, grab your 6.5mm crochet hook, your scissors, and then we'll jump right into the pattern. So the first thing you'll notice when you've printed your pattern, or if you saved it to your computer or your laptop, you're going to notice that there is a lot of text in this written crochet pattern. And this is a really great opportunity to start learning how to read a crochet pattern if you're not familiar with that already. So in this tutorial, we'll focus on the written part of this instructions and how to sort of translate it into stitches. However, I will point to your attention that there is a diagram available with this pattern as well. And if you're having trouble just getting caught up on the words or in the repeats, if you just need something to refer to, I highly recommend you take a look at the diagram. Even if you're unfamiliar with diagrams, this is going to be, like I said, a great opportunity to start learning how to use these tools in order to start reading crochet patterns and reading diagrams. So the first thing we want to do to start this pattern is we want to create our slip knot. Leave yourself a tail that's long enough that you can weave in, and place that loop on your hook. Now in the very beginning of the written instructions, we see that with color A, which is what we have here, the gold in this case, we want to chain 72. So this loop on our hook never counts as a chain. So we'll just start counting from there. So after you've made your chain of 72, you definitely want to double check and make sure that you have 72 chains. It's going to be very important for our pattern repeat and our color pattern. So when you're certain you have 72, we're ready to just jump right in to the written instructions. The first thing that we want to do is make a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So we're going to skip this chain right here. That's the first one next to our hook. Make a single crochet in the second, and you can work in any loop of that chain that you're comfortable with. Now once we do that, we're going to start on a stitch pattern that might be similar to you. This one is called the moss stitch. It's also called the granite or the linen stitch. Now there is some slight modifications that you're going to see throughout this pattern in order to make clean color transitions. But just keep that stitch pattern in mind. It's going to help you a lot with the wording in this written crochet pattern. So we're going to start our repeat. For the first row, we're going to chain 1, skip a chain, and then single crochet into the next. And if you're following along exactly with the written instructions, it tells you to repeat that 5 times. But I find that just a little bit hard to keep track of. So what I do is just keep track of the number of single crochets. So we made our first one, and we're supposed to repeat 5 times. So that means we're going to have 6 single crochets with this color in this part of the foundation chain. So we made our first one and our second one. So we'll chain 1, skip a chain. That's the third. Chain 1, skip a chain, and the fourth. Chain 1, skip a chain, and that's the fifth. Now chain 1, skip 1, and just work half of this single crochet. Now once you've made your 6th single crochet, we're just going to stop halfway. This is where we're going to introduce our first color transition, and we always have to stop halfway on that last single crochet. The other thing we always have to do is to pull this strand forward. Now you can actually grab the bobbin and pull it in front, and you want to make sure that we aren't tangling these. So you want to keep these little bobbins just somewhere near you. It's probably going to be best to work this pattern on either a pillow or a tabletop or something like that. Now we're going to grab our next bobbin, which is the contrasting color B, and just fold it in half. Leave yourself a tail that we can work over, and then just place that loop on your hook and pull it through the 2 loops that were on your hook. Okay, so leave this yarn in place just as it is right there. Grab your working yarn, and now we're going to just work over this tail. So I like to steady that within my 2 fingers there, and then just hold it along the chain, and we'll hide it as we work our next few stitches. So the next thing that we want to do is find the very next chain, and we're going to single crochet into that chain, and then we'll chain 1, skip a chain, and single crochet into the next. And this time, instead of 6 like we had before, we're going to have a total of 4 single crochets for this part of the color transition. So skip a stitch. This is now the 3rd single crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, and just like before, we're just going to work half of our single crochet here. So when you have those 2 loops on your hook, leave them there, grab the yarn that we were just working with, that bobbin there, and pull that in front. Now this little straggler, you can just leave that there. You can trim it off now, whichever you're comfortable with. I'm just going to leave it there for now and steady these 2 aside. Now we're going to grab our 3rd bobbin, which for our color repeat is going to be contrasting color A again. So just fold that in half, place that loop on your hook, and then simply pull it through. Now again, we're going to work over top of this tail, and we're going to make sure this color just stays where it is. If you need to steady that with your thumb, then you can do so. So we want to find the next chain, and we're going to make a single crochet in the very next chain. And then the same stitch pattern. So we'll chain 1, skip a chain, single crochet into the next, And again, we want to have a total of 6 single crochets. So that was 2, 3, 4, 5, and again on the 6th one we're going to stop halfway because we're going to work our 3rd color transition. This time we're going to grab contrasting color C or the charcoal tweed. Now before we do that, again, we want to make sure that we're pulling that bobbin out of the way and just pulling it forward. And the reason why we're doing that will be very obvious in the next row. It's actually a really great idea, technique. Whoever thought of this was pretty brilliant. So place that loop on your hook and pull it through those 2. Now again, we can work over our straggler. So here we're working the same stitch pattern. This time we want to have a total of 7 single crochet. So it's a little bit wider than before. Just locate your next chain, make a single crochet, chain 1, skip a chain, single crochet. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again on the very last one, or the 7th single crochet, we're going to stop halfway. Now you guessed it, we're going to pull this one forward, leave that out of the way, grab your next bobbin, which is going to be color A, or the gold color, if you're following the pattern. So fold that in half, pull it through, now we're going to be working with 6 single crochets again for this portion of the pattern, or the color pattern. So single crochet in that very next chain, chain 1, skip a chain, single crochet, do that until you have 6. Now just like before, on your 6th single crochet, just leave that halfway, pull this bobbin forward, and attach our next color transition, which again is going to be contrasting color B, or the Aran colorway. Place that loop on your hook and pull it through. Now this time we're going to have a total of 4 single crochets in our stitch pattern. So single crochet in the very next chain, that makes 1, skip a stitch, it's 2, 3, and again on the 4th one, stop halfway, pull that bobbin forward, and for my very last color transition, Instead of working with a bobbin, I'd have just a leftover skein. So this is the skein of yarn that I used to roll my first 3 bobbins with. Now pull that through. And locate your next chain, make a single crochet, and work your stitch pattern. Chain 1, skip a chain, single crochet, chain 1, skip a chain, single crochet. Now we will end up with 6 single crochets at the end of our foundation row. This is our very last little bit for our foundation chain. Now if you have been counting correctly and doing your color transitions in the correct place, your 6 single crochet for this last color transition should end up in your very last chain. Now the foundation chain is definitely the hardest part in this pattern, so if you've survived this far, the rest is going to be a piece of cake. One thing that we want to make sure of is that we are not tangling up these little bobbins or these strands, because we're going to come back and use those to start working on the next row for our color transitions. And this is going to eliminate the need for us to bind off, add on colors, carry the yarn, because you can actually see it through the stitches. So this is a really great technique, but it is exactly that, it's a technique. So you do need to be careful of tangling up these strands as we're working. So we need to be mindful of how we're turning our project. So we are now moving on to the second row of our pattern. We're going to keep our last bobbin attached. We're just going to continue using it. Now we do want to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work. And as I said before, we want to be mindful of how we're doing this, just making sure that we don't tangle up our bobbins. So I'm always just going to go in this direction, and when I turn it the next time, I'm just going to go back in the opposite direction. So the first thing we want to do is make a single crochet in our very first single crochet. And then we want to make a single crochet in our chain 1 gap space. And now we can proceed with our usual pattern repeat. So we'll chain 1, skip a stitch or skip that single crochet, and then single crochet into the chain 1 gap space, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into that last chain 1 gap space, and then find your last gold stitch here in this case, and then work half of your single crochet. And here is where we're going to start our color transitions again. So we want to bring this color that we're working with, we want to bring it forward, just like we were doing in the previous row. Now the next thing we want to do is locate this white bobbin. So once you have your next color transition, the bobbin in your hand, it's untangled, then we're just going to grab it, yarn over, and pull through those first 2 loops. Now we'll keep this one in the front, the color we were just working with, and then we can proceed with our pattern. So no joining, no cutting, none of that. This is a brilliant technique. So make a single crochet into your very next stitch, and then single crochet again into the chain 1 gap space. Now chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet. Now make half of your single crochet in the very last stitch there. Then we'll just bring that bobbin forward, lay that over. This is the little tail from adding on, so I would recommend just go ahead and trimming those off, that way you don't have to worry about them. They don't confuse you with your color transitions. And now I have my next bobbin here in line just ready to go. I just pick it up in my yarn hand and then just yarn over and pull through 2. Now we'll make a single crochet in our very next stitch. And again, single crochet into the chain 1 gap space. This is our pattern repeat for this row. Chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, and repeat that until we come to our next color transition. Now make your single crochet in the very last stitch, but just halfway, leaving that just right there, pulling that bobbin forward. Again, I'm just going to trim off this little tail. Then pick up your next color, yarn over, and pull through 2. So the written instructions really are, they look very intimidating. There's a lot of words on that page. There's a lot of instructions to follow, but if you take the time and read through it the first time, you know, just do that once, get a clear understanding of the pattern. It's really going to give you your best shot in succeeding. But most of all, if you can just visualize what this is supposed to look at and you can see where your color transitions are happening, once we made that first foundation row, which we just did, really everything else is a piece of cake from there. We can work completely from our minds and our memory now at this point, and really just refer to the pattern whenever we get stuck on something or if we're starting a different section of the pattern. So again, just make your very last single crochet into that stitch. And pull that bobbin forward. And then grab your next color and yarn over and pull through. Single crochet in the first stitch and in the chain 1 gap space, and then your repeat. Chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet. So on your very last little bit of the second row, we do want to make sure we get our single crochet into that chain 1 space, but we want to also make sure that we make a single crochet into our very last stitch there. And we're not going to do any color transitioning. We're going to keep our color A attached, and from here we're ready to move on to row 3. So when we're ready to move on to row 3, you'll probably have something in front of you that looks like this. I have all my little bobbins just right here up front. I have the one that I'm working with here. And we need to turn in this direction here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just rotate the crochet work and just kind of let those bobbins, just let the yarn kind of unwind on those. And when we're looking at it from this direction, we shouldn't see any of those strands. This is the right side of the scarf, so we shouldn't see any of those bobbins showing through. Now the one thing I would do is before you actually start on the 3rd row, just take a second now to rotate your bobbins and get them sort of in front of you and behind the project back here. Just line them up, that way they're ready to go, and then you can just grab the colors as you transition. Now once you have yourself situated, I want to quickly bring your attention to something that's going on inside the work with these color transitions, how we're carrying the yarn from, well, we're not technically carrying it, it's the technique of intarsia, where we're using the same strand. So we're going to see a bar, and it blends right in. You can't see it hardly at all unless you know what you're looking for. This bar is the yarn that we have carried from one row up to the next. So once you have yourself situated, in starting the 3rd row, we want to chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet into the 1st stitch. Now this pattern repeat is just slightly different than the last one. Instead of making a single crochet into the chain space, because we don't have one this time around, we're simply going to jump into our repeat where we chain 1, skip a stitch, and then single crochet into the chain space. And then you can just use this visually now. I encourage you to follow along with the pattern just so you can get a feel for how it's worded and get a better understanding of how to read them. But you can just use your foundation now from this point to determine where you're going to pick up your new color and end. So in the very last stitch, we'll just work half of our single crochet, pull this bobbin forward, and then just immediately pick up that next color, yarn over and pull through, and then pick up single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the gap space, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, and then stop halfway through on that 4th stitch, pull this color forward, and then pick up your next color. And so now everything from this point is just a repeat. So just a slight difference in how we're using our stitch pattern repeat, but the color transitions are all the same. Now this video is going to be broken up into 3 different videos, if you haven't noticed already, we're breaking it up into 3, and that's because, like I said, this is a very intricate pattern and there's a lot of steps involved here. And if you're a beginner or if you've never done the intarsia crochet method, then this is a really good place to start, just following step by step with this tutorial. So in this first one, we're going to cover the first half of the color pattern. And that's what we've started here. We're basically going to have 10 rows of this same color pattern that we're working with. And then when we jump into video number 2, we're going to work the second half of the color pattern repeat. And then after that, we'll have a long period where we can crochet up the length of our scarf, because this is, as the name implies, a super scarf. So it's very long. It's going to be 93 inches long. So we'll take some time to crochet up the length of our scarf, and then in video number 3 we'll talk about the finishing techniques. So we will have a few ends to weave in, not many, and we'll also have some surface crochet stripes to add on, which is a very cool technique, and we have some fringe that we can add to our scarves as well. So we'll cover those little details in the 3rd video. Now again, don't forget to make your very last single crochet into that last stitch. And that concludes the 3rd row. So we're briefly going to cover rows 4, and then we're going to jump into our main repeat for this section of the color pattern. So once you get yourself situated, you have your bobbins all lined up and ready to go for the 4th row, this one is going to be a repeat of what we've already covered. So the 4th row, if you're looking at your written instructions, it says as 2nd row. So that basically just means that all we're doing is repeating the 2nd row. So go ahead and crochet up the 2nd row, come back to this video, and we'll talk about the bigger portion of the repeat for this pattern. Okay, so once you have finished row 4, your scarf should now look something like this. And as I mentioned, that's just a repeat, nothing new here. And now we're ready to move on to the next section. And we'll see it written as the 5th to 10th rows in the written instructions, and that tells us that this is going to be a significant repeat. So we're going to be repeating rows 3 and 4 alternating from the rows 5 to 10. So in order to make that a little easier to understand, row 5 is going to be the same as row 3. Row 6 is going to be the same as row 4. Row 7 is going to be row 3, row 8, row 4, and so on. So what I would recommend is just getting a scrap piece of paper, writing that down for yourself so you can just keep track of it as you go and not really have to think about it. Once we finish up this part of our pattern repeat, that's going to conclude what we cover here in this first video. So what I need for you to do at this point is crochet up to the 10th row. And then come back to video number 2 of this video tutorial, and we'll talk about how to proceed with our color pattern and just work our way a little bit closer to finishing up the big tartan scarf.